Hello friends, and welcome to another video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Kathleen, and here in this little space of the internet, I like to talk about all things bookish, self-care, and cozy. So this video is going to be all about the books that I'm planning to read in February, my February TBR. So let's hop into it. So when it comes to my TBR this month, it's kind of sort of a little ambitious, considering my goal for this month is to read 14 books, and I have a ton of library holds that I need to work my way through. I think I have over 5 or 6 library holds that I need to read and work my way through as well. And I'm making it fully well knowing that I may not be able to get to all of these books on my TBR, but we will see if this will be the month that I'll be able to reach my stretch goal, which is to read around 20 to 24 books in a month. We'll see if that can happen. February is a short month, I know, but we'll see what can happen. So before we dive into the TBR, I want to share a couple of my goals that I'm planning or that I want to achieve this month. And that would be to read 2 nonfiction books, 1 sci-fi, to have 1 reread of a book that I've read before, to read 1 Amazon first reads book. And yeah, that's pretty much my goals for the month of what I'm shooting for, that I want to accomplish and I want to achieve. And I kept those things in mind as I was building this TBR of books that I want to read this month. So yeah, let's dive into it. So I added Call Us What We Carry by Amanda Gorman to my TBR because I unfortunately have not read enough poetry in the past decade of my life. Poetry used to be my bread and butter, and I was constantly reading different poetry by Langston Hughes and all these great poets back when I was a teenager and I was younger. And I just kind of shifted away or transitioned away from this beautiful type of literature, this beautiful art of conveying your feelings and your thoughts about the things around you and about the world itself and about society. And I want to get back into poetry and to really, appreciate it for all that it is. And I have heard many good things about Amanda Gorman. She is an amazing woman, amazing and beautiful woman, and I cannot wait to read this collection of poems by her. Next up is the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I have added this to my TBR for this month, and honestly, this TBR is definitely very fantasy heavy, as there are a lot of fantasy books and series that I want to apparently start and get into this month. And I've heard so many great things about this series. How it's just a phenomenal exploration of just female rage and the indomitable spirit of women when it comes to protecting theirs and their own. And I am looking forward to reading this book. So it says, the synopsis says that this is the way the world ends for the last time. It starts with the Great Red Rift across the heart of the world's sole continent, spewing ash that blots out the sun. It starts with death, with a murdered son and a missing daughter. It starts with betrayal and long dormant wounds rising up to fester. This is the stillness, a land familiar with catastrophe, where the power of earth is wielded as a weapon and where there is no mercy. That sounds so good, and I'm looking forward to reading this. Next up, we have Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and I'm super excited for this. This is one of the most anticipated books that I want to read this month because the hype and the fandom surrounding this series and surrounding this author, and the fact that this series is going to be made into a film adaptation. I need to get prepared. I need to read this series stat. And I am so very excited to dive into the series and read it this month. The synopsis states, Zili Adebola remembers when the soil of Orisha hummed with magic. Burners ignited flames, tiders beckoned waves, and Zili's Reaper mother summoned forth souls. But everything changed once magic disappeared. Under the orders of a ruthless king, the Magi were targeted and killed, leaving Zelie without a mother and her people without hope. Now, Zelie has one chance to bring back magic and strike against the monarchy. With the help of a rogue princess, Zelie must outwit and outrun the crown prince, who is hell-bent on eradicating magic for good. Danger lurks in Orisha, where snow lepaniers prowl and vengeful spirits wait in the waters. Yet the greatest threat may be Zelie herself, as she struggles to control her powers and her growing feelings for an enemy. That synopsis was so beautifully written, and it sounds so intriguing, and I cannot wait to begin this series. Next up, to help satisfy my goal of reading a nonfiction this month, is A Master of Me by Keke Palmer. I love Keke Palmer. I think she is so beautiful. She is funny. She is hilarious. She is talented. She is everything. And I cannot wait to learn more about her and read this autobiography of her life and to just kind of see all the elements and all the pieces of her life and her existence that makes her into this phenomenal human being that she is. So the synopsis for this reads as: Keke Palmer thought she knew who she was, what it means to be a good person, and what it takes to be a success. It all seemed so simple until she realized the challenges she would have to face to prove to herself who she wanted to be, from feeling alienated to having to restart her career after 10 years into becoming a single mother just months after her son was born. Everything she worked for in life that she felt granted her what she wanted now also reminded her that life is going to life and throw curveballs regardless of what you deserve. She found herself asking, where do I find my power? How do I master myself? In her own raw and intimate words, Keke talks about everything from her struggles with boundaries to unconditional love, forgiveness, and worthiness. Don't block your blessings and potential opportunities by allowing the voices of other people to influence your actions, she says. How you're choosing to set yourself up for success is between you and the person looking back at you in the mirror. Throughout the book, Keke also poses readers with the questions needed to get them through their own challenging times by sharing personal stories and lessons she's learned along the way. She gets candid about the tools she's developed to take the reins, harness her vulnerability, and recognize ownership in the narrative of her life, which allow her to turn personal power into major power. In this exhilarating, deeply poignant, and often laugh out loud book, Lauren Kiana Palmer gets real about life, work, love, and belief. These pages will encourage readers to empower themselves with the truth, leverage their currency, and find the keys to master themselves and the art of alchemy. Keke writes, you are not on anyone else's timeline, only your own. The result is a tour de force. They said, jack of all trades, master of none. She said, no, I am the master of me. I hadn't read the synopsis until this very moment, and that sounds so amazing. I cannot wait to read this book. Next up, I have a Kindle Unlimited fantasy series it's an indie Kindle Unlimited fantasy series that I'm anxious to start. I heard about this series on Instagram, either Instagram or Threads, not quite sure. But wherever I heard about it, it sounded so intriguing, and I said, say less. And I added it to my want to read, and now it is the time to dig into the story and read it. So the synopsis states, when 24-year-old Amira must provide for her family, she finds herself making a bargain with a clever witch that could possibly alter her life forever. In her pursuit to return home, she crosses paths with a savior, a powerful fairy, that transfers her to an alternate realm she never knew existed. In a quest entwined with dark magic and immortality, Amira begins to question everything she has ever known. She'll need to remain the fighter she's always been while piecing together the truths that are hidden in the shadows of Solaris, if she wants to survive. With each day that passes, she finds herself more attached to her new surroundings, including the white-winged fae that unexpectedly entered her life. Will she become a permanent part of his lavish world, or return to a life of poverty in the mortal realm to reunite with her family? Amira's decision won't be easy, deciphering between lust and fate. That sounds so interesting. I can't wait to read that. Next up, I have The Do-Over by Lynn Painter on my TBR for this month. So I am planning to do kind of like a romance vlog to celebrate Valentine's Day and to get in the love and just the romantic mood for the month. And I know this book, it it happens like during Valentine's Day or on Valentine's Day, and I definitely want to read it because of that aspect. It seems so fitting for the time of year and for the season and for the holiday. So definitely want to read this book. I do have to purchase it, so I have to go out and buy it and add it to my collection and all that great stuff, but I do plan on reading that this month. So the synopsis states, in this riotous young adult romp for fans of Recommended for You and A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow, a teen girl has the worst Valentine's Day ever, only to relive it over and over again. After living through a dumpster fire of a Valentine's Day, Emily Hornby escapes to her grandmother's house for some comfort and a consolation pint of Ben & Jerry's. She passes out on the couch, but when she wakes up, she's back home in her own bed. And it's Valentine's Day. All over again. And the next day, another nightmare every day. Emily is stuck in some sort of time loop nightmare that she can't wake up from as she rewatches her boyfriend, Josh, cheat on her day after day. In addition to Josh's recurring infidelity, Emily can't get away from enigmatic Nick, who she keeps running into, sometimes literally, in unfortunate ways. How many days can one girl passively watch her life go up in flames? And when something good starts to come out of these terrible days, what happens when the universe stops doling out do-overs? That sounds so interesting. I love books that play with time and have like a little bit of a time loop element to it. So I think this is going to be super fun. Next up is the second book this month that I'm super excited and hyped to read, which is Blood Marks by Tracy Deonn. I'm so excited to read this book. I'm literally on pins and needles. I cannot wait to find out what happens in this series. And I'm so pumped that as soon as I finish this, I'll be able to continue on with the series and read Oathbound, which is being released in March. So this is just, what a time to be alive. It is so flipping excited. I'm not gonna read the synopsis of this book since it's in a, series, and if you want to know more about the series, you should read Legendborn and catch up to it. But let me just tell you, this is such a phenomenal series, and I'm so excited to find out what happens to our girl Bree and all the adventures that she's about to have. So yeah. Next up is Us Against You by Frederick Bachman. So I read Beartown last month, and it was such an emotional and poignant book. I was literally bawling, y'all. I was like reading this book and just crying buckets of tears. It hit me to my core. And I knew I had to continue on with the series and find out more about what happened to these people in this community and this town. And I am going to find a way to read this book this month, come hell or high water. And yeah, also not gonna read the synopsis for this because it's part of a continuing series. Go back, check out Beartown, read that, get caught up, and dig into this book. And I'm telling you, you won't regret it because Beartown was phenomenal, and this series is so phenomenal. So yeah. Next up, I have this Motherless Land by Nikki May. I purchased this book back in October when it was first released, and I just haven't made time or added it to my TBR or prioritized reading it. And I'm definitely going to do so this month because I am very excited about reading this book. So the synopsis for this story states, Quiet Funky is happy in Nigeria. She loves her art teacher mother, her professor father, and even her annoying little brother, most of the time. But when tragedy strikes, she's sent to England, a place she knows only from her mother's stories. To her dismay, she finds the much-lauded estate dilapidated, the food tasteless, the weather gray. Worse still, her mother's family are cold and distant, with one exception, her cousin Liv. Free-spirited Liv has always wanted to break free of her joyless family. She becomes fiercely protective of her little cousin, and her warmth and kindness give Funky a place to heal. The two girls grow into adulthood the closest to friends, but the choices their mothers made haunt Funky and Liv. And when a second tragedy occurs, their friendship is torn apart. Against the long shadow of their shared family history, each woman will struggle to chart a path forward, separated by country, misunderstanding, and ambition. Moving between Somerset and Lagos over the course of 2 decades, this Motherless Land is a sweeping examination of identity, culture, race, and love that asks how we find belonging and whether a family's generational wrongs can be righted. I love it. I love family drama. I love explorations into racial identity and to also kind of coming of age and personal identity and taking ownership of who you are as a person. This has all the things that I love, and I'm very excited to dive into this book. Next up, the book that I'm going to be reading for that romance vlog that I'm planning on filming and starting to film in a couple of days is, this book really needs no introduction, but it is A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. I decided to finally go ahead and give this book a shot. I thought it would be perfect because it is red, so it fits the whole vibe of Valentine's Day and the Valentine's Day season. So I thought this would be perfect to add to my my Valentine's Day TBR, as you will, and looking forward to reading this book as well. So it says, a 19-year-old huntress, Feyre, kills a wolf in the woods. A terrifying creature arrives to demand retribution. Dragged to a treacherous magical land she knows about only from legends, Feyre discovers that her captor is not truly a beast, but one of the lethal immortal fairies who once ruled her world. At least he's not a beast all the time. As she adapts to her new home, her feelings for the fairy, Tamlin, transform from icy hostility into a fiery passion that burns through every lie she's been told about the beautiful, dangerous world of the Fae. But something is not right in the fairylands. An ancient wicked shadow is growing, and Feyre must find a way to stop it or doom Tamlin and his world forever. Sounds interesting, you know. This is a much debated, talked about book with people falling on either side of this, but I will see for myself. Next up is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This is another book that I purchased probably back, I think, in October or November, and I just haven't made the space or the time to read this book because my physical TBR is a little wild right now, but I'm definitely going to prioritize reading this month. And the synopsis states, a captivating love story that is also a clear-eyed look at the effects of injustice in contemporary American life. Tayari Jones's novel gorgeously chronicles three people who are bound together and separated by forces beyond their control. As newlyweds, Celestial and Roy are living the American dream. He is a young executive, and she is an artist on the brink of an exciting career. But after Roy's incarceration for a crime he did not commit, Celestial, bereft and unmoored, turns to a childhood friend and Roy's best man, Andre, for support. As Roy's absence drags on, Celestial faces soul-wrenching decisions about balancing loyalty with independence, desire with social and familial expectations, and what is right with what is fair and to whom. So, does that not sound captivating and interesting? Again, some marital drama, family drama, a little bit of a love triangle probably. Yeah, I'm here for that. Next up is James by Percival Everett, which was a Barnes & Noble Book of the Year for 2024. I'm excited to read this book. I've heard nothing but spectacular things about it and about Percival Everett as an author and a writer, and I am beyond ecstatic to be diving into his works and into his world. I was a little nervous about even contemplating purchasing or reading this book, as I know that it's kind of like a reimagining of Huckleberry Finn, and that, quite honestly, is a book that I'm not truly interested in reading. But I have heard so many people say that you do not have to read Huckleberry Finn. It's not a prerequisite. It's definitely a reimagining of the story, and that is beautiful and poignant and impactful. So I'm gonna take their word for it. I'm gonna give this book a read, and yeah, I'm excited. Next up is, this one has been on my TBR for a while. This was on my January TBR, and it is now going to go back on my February TBR because I want to read this. And this is The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. And yeah, I don't know what else to say, except I'm excited to read this story. I'm excited to read this fantasy. This book is immaculate. It is beautiful. It is gorgeous. And yeah, I can't wait to read this. The synopsis says, 16-year-old Decca lives in fear and anticipation of the blood ceremony that will determine whether she becomes a member of her village. Already different from everyone else because of her unnatural intuition, Decca prays for red blood so she can finally feel like she belongs. But on the day of the ceremony, her blood runs gold, the color of impurity, and Decca knows she will face a consequence worse than death. Then a mysterious woman comes to her with a choice. Stay in the village and submit to her fate, or leave to fight for the emperor in an army of girls just like her. They are called Elaki, near mortals with rare gifts, and they are the only ones who can stop the empire's greatest threat. Knowing the dangers that lie ahead, yet yearning for acceptance, Decca decides to leave the only life she's ever known. But as she journeys to the capital to train for the biggest battle of her life, she discovers that the Great Walled City holds many surprises. Nothing and no one are quite what they seem to be. not even Decca herself. In this bold and immersive fantasy, a young heroine fights to save a world that would dare to tame her and discovers that she is her own fiercest weapon. I cannot wait. I love it. And lastly, to satisfy my goal of completing and reading a reread this month, I will be attempting to, and as part of my romance vlog for February, I want to reread If He Had Been With Me by Laura Nolan. So I read this book and when it was at its heyday and its popularity a year ago, I think, and I loved it. It was such a bittersweet and just tragic love story, and I really appreciated it and enjoyed it. And when I saw that this special edition, or this collector's edition, became available, I thought it was so beautiful, and I had to have it. And I also think the reason why I also want to try to read it in February is because this book, it is giving all the vibes of Valentine's Day. Like it screams Valentine's Day. So I'm definitely going to try to read it this month and enjoy it. And yeah, so that are all the books that I would like to accomplish reading this month. Again, I have about 6 books, probably more than 6 books that are library holds that I need to complete and read as well. So let's keep that in mind. So it's gonna be a little chaotic, but I really want to try to do all that I can to read these books and to kind of like knock down my library holds and read those as well. So we will see what this month has in store for us. So what are your reading plans and your reading goals for February? What books are on your TBR list that you are excited about reading? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe to this channel so that you can continue to see more bookish and self-care and cozy videos and all those vibes. And until next time, I will see you. Happy reading. Bye.